Hi guys, how are you doing? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Neil and today we're going to see if you record at home in your studio whether you need a 100-watt head like all these heads behind me, or whether you can make do with just a little 15-watt head. Okay guys, so if you've been watching my channel for the last few months, you've been noticing that I've been doing quite a lot of amp shootouts with all the amps that you can see behind me. And what I usually do is I record a track using my 2-Nuts Capture X, which is over there, which is basically a Loadbox, and also it has impulse response in as well. I've been recording tracks with that, and then I've been miking up a cab in the room straight into my camera and demoing the amps that way as well. So in one video you would get two heads versus each other in a mix recorded with a 2-Nuts Capture X, and then you would also get both the amps versus each other with a mic'd up cab in the room. Now one thing that I noticed while doing these demos is that when using the Loadbox, the Capture X, although the Capture X is absolutely brilliant and I use it all the time and I record all my tracks with the Capture X, I've noticed that using a Loadbox and an IR does take something away, or at least for me personally it takes something away from the flavour of the amp. The best way for me to explain exactly what I mean by this is that behind me here I have an EVH L34S 100-watt head. That head sounds bigger, fuller, more three-dimensional than any other head that is behind me right now in the room. And also when you mic it with an SM57, it also kind of sounds a bit bigger. To your ears in the room, it sounds quite a lot larger, a lot more three-dimensional than the other amps. Through the SM57, it still sounds a lot bigger, a lot fatter, a lot fuller than the other amps, but less of a difference as it does to your ear. Through the 2-Nuts Capture X, that three-dimensional huge sound is not quite there as much. So basically what I'm saying is that when I use the 2-Nuts Capture X and I record my tracks and my songs, that it seems to make a more even playing field for all these amps. For instance, the L34S and the JSX behind me here, the PV JSX, are both my favourite heads that are in this room right now. However, when I'm using the 2-Nuts Capture X, what I've noticed in the amp shootouts is that my Marshall JVM actually works better and sounds better, and it sounds tighter and nicer to me to use in a mix with the Capture X. You can see behind me here an EVH Lbx1 and also an EVH 50-watt Stealth. Now, when I listen to these amps in the room, they're both great amps, but the EVH 50-watt Stealth obviously sounds fatter, thicker and fuller than a 15-watt head. The 15-watt head has EL84s in, and this has 6L6 tubes in the power section, so bigger tubes usually to me mean a fatter, fuller sound anyway. The Lbx1 is a great amp. It's got tons of bi and tons of mid-range attack, which is what the EL84s do. The 6L6s in the Stealth just make it a bit more fatter, a bit more fuller, a bit more room filling. What I want to find out in this video is that now we're all using load boxes and IRs at home to record, does it really matter what size our power section is or what size our power tubes are? In this video I've used the red channel of the Lbx1 and the red channel of the 6L6 Stealth. I've put the settings exactly the same on both channels. Now first of all, the EVH red channel is the channel that is most consistent throughout the range of heads. So it doesn't really matter which EVH you own, the red channel is pretty similar on all of them. The L34s obviously are slightly different, but it is very slight. They still have the same flavour. With these two heads, I'd say the red channels are pretty close. And like I say, when using the 2-Nuts Capture X with IRs, it kind of takes away that fullness, that beef that you would usually have within the room. So if you record at home and you use a Loadbox and IRs, do you need a massive 100-watt head? I'm a big believer, and I've done this in tests before, that when you're playing at home, a 100-watt head, even on bedroom volume, still sounds fuller and fatter than, say, a 15-watt head. Even though you can't crank the master as loud as you could on, say, a 15-watt head or a lunchbox head, it's still somehow a 100-watt head to me sounds fuller and sounds better, even on low volume. Modern high-gain heads nowadays are not like JCM 800s. The old fallacy of crank them, to get the fullness and get the full sound out of them, that's really all in days gone by now. Modern high-gain heads sound great at bedroom volume as well. So when you fork out for one of these heads you can see behind me, they will sound great at low volume as well. In this video I'm using exactly the same IRs for both heads, exactly the same settings. The only thing I have changed is in the DAW I have brought up the volume, because as you can understand, one head is 50 watts and one head is 15 watt. I need to even that out, because basically the 15 watt head volume was down here and the 50 watt head was there, and I needed to bring them together like that so they were the same volumes, and I did that using the volume meter in Logic. Okay, so without further ado, let's get on with it. Let's listen to it. First of all, you're going to hear both red channels in a mix, you're going to hear one amp, then you're going to hear the other amp. But then you need to stick around afterwards for the important part, where the amps are not going to be in a mix at all, one left, one right, and I'm going to chop and change and cut the track up between both heads, so you will be able to hear them verse each other and see if you think that you can hear more fullness, more thickness, more roundness on the 50-watt head than you can on the 15-watt head, like you could if you were sat in a room or if you had a cab mic'd up. This is a really exciting test for me. I want to see the results just as much as you do, so let's get on with it. Let's go.